you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Evidently, I'm the host, so I guess it's my job to do this at the beginning, so I'll just go ahead and do it. Welcome to the show, guys. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. Refer the show to your family, friends, relatives, and everyone else. Tell them to subscribe at youtube.com/Chris Voss. All those places like goodreads.com/Chris Voss. See everything we're reading and reviewing over there. All of our groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. All those crazy places the kids are playing these days. Make sure you subscribe to the LinkedIn newsletter. That thing is killing it over there. You'll see this on their LinkedIn newsletter in the next day or two, if I can spell LinkedIn or pronounce it. Also go to our big 130,000 group over there on LinkedIn. So we're excited to announce my new book is coming out. It's called Beacons of Leadership, Inspiring Lessons of Success in Business and Innovation. It's going to be coming out on October 5th, 2021. And I'm really excited for you to get a chance to read this book. It's filled with a multitude of my insightful stories, lessons, my life, and experiences in leadership and character. I give you some of the secrets from my CEO entrepreneur toolbox that I use to scale my business success, innovate, and build a multitude of companies. I've been a CEO for, 33, 35 years now. We talk about leadership, the importance of leadership, how to become a great leader, and how anyone can become a great leader as well. Or order the book wherever fine books are sold. Today, we have an amazing author on the show. He's a multi-book author, if you will. He's written many books. That's what that means. Multi-author, for those of you from the new generation who can't read. Public school. It's so awesome. I went there too. Anyway, guys, David Sachs is on the show with us. He's written a book called The Soul of an Entrepreneur, Work and Life Beyond the Startup Myth. Came out April 21st, 2020. He was recommended by someone on the show, so thanks to whoever did that. So we're going to be talking about his awesome book today, and he's got a lot in the package here I'm seeing here on Amazon. He is a journalist, writer, and keynote speaker, specializing in business and culture. Welcome to the show, David. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. I have to say, I've been in a lot of podcasts. I have never heard a podcast intro theme music like that.
Thank you.
All you needed to complete it was someone saying Sunday, Sunday, Sunday at the, Toledo Metrodome, the Chris Voss podcast.
We had Dave Navarro on last week I'm still suffering from leg day, but the musician, and he heard the intro and he goes, I thought I was entering a WWE truck show or something.
Yeah, 100%. It was a 1980s monster truck rally announcer that you got, which is great. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. We feed it with energy. So welcome to the show. We certainly appreciate you coming on. Congratulations on the book. Give us your plugs, your .com, so people can find you on those interwebs.
Good question. Yes, I have a very untouched website that I just paid the bill for today, but haven't touched in a few years, called saxdavid.com. And then a Twitter at saxdavid, which I try to avoid for my mental sanity, and LinkedIn, Sax David, I guess, David Sachs. I don't know. It's somewhere on there. People seem to find me. Bangladeshi Forex traders and various Bitcoin evangelists seem to invite me every day. So yeah, I'm on there as well. I love LinkedIn. It's the most boring of the social networks. And I say that with great praise.
Well, we'll probably have you on the newsletter tomorrow. Probably we'll have it out tomorrow. Great. So that'll go out to a bunch of people. And then, we love LinkedIn. I've been on it since the beginning of time. So before Microsoft ruined it. And it's starting to really, though, come into its own now again. The ruining of Microsoft has kind of made a comeback. So you've written a lot of books. How many books have you written total? I'm seeing like a whole bunch of them here on Amazon.
A whole bunch of books. This one, The Soul of an Entrepreneur, which came out 2 years ago, pretty much. That was my fourth. I have another one coming out this fall. So yeah, I guess this is what I do.
Awesome.
Just sling paper.
Sling ideas
letters on paper. Yeah. So I
paper and words.
I write books for a living.
There you go. So I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years and I'm still searching for my soul. Tell us what motivated you want to write this book, The Soul of an Entrepreneur, or if you want to give us a little origin story, maybe that led you up to it too, feel free.
Well, similar story to yours, Chris, in that I had been working for myself as a writer and journalist and speaker and whatever else I do to make money and live and define myself as a human being in this modern world for a similar period of time, 2 decades. And I had never worked for anyone else. I mean, the last job I had as a paid employee was teaching skiing, for 2 months in a winter on the weekends. And even in my career, I've never been employed by a newspaper, an organization. So, I always worked for myself. Not only that, but my wife had just started her own business. My brother had just started his own business. My father has been an entrepreneur his entire career. He graduated law school. He worked at one firm for a year. And after got his certification, they were like, Sachs, you're not meant to be an employee here. My grandfather started a tool business, which just finally closed after 80 years. So everyone in my family was an entrepreneur in the sense that they all worked for themselves. And my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, like everyone. And yet, at the time when I started thinking about this book, which was 4 or 5 years ago, everybody was talking about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. There were podcasts and festivals and magazines and, so much sexiness and glamour around entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. But it was only about one type of entrepreneurship. And I didn't recognize myself or anyone that I knew in that, or, very few people. And that was kind of this exclusive focus on the glorification of the kind of Silicon Valley style startup entrepreneur, right? And the story. You've heard the story before, I imagine, Chris.
It's most of our audience.
Young, brilliant man or woman graduated or dropped out, even better, from Harvard or Stanford. No other university, Dartmouth, nobody cares. The State University of Nevada or whatever, and had a brilliant idea and manifested it with, hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital. And now they're sitting on a stage in like very expensive but casual looking sneakers, telling you how you can be an entrepreneur. and sort of this myth of the startup as the kind of defining story and mythology of entrepreneurship really captured the world of business and of culture. I mean, transcending it, right? Think of someone like Elon Musk. He's not written about in the business press. He's worshipped in celebrity magazines and in cultural magazines. I mean, he is as much a cultural figure as, a movie star. And it has very little to do with his like financial acumen or whatever. And yet that is the example that everybody sort of looks at when they're talking about entrepreneurship, which, as I started thinking about, and again, looking for myself and my family and my wife and everybody I knew in these figures and this kind of mythology of the entrepreneur, which was really like the story that everybody wanted to tell, I was missing out on the 99% of entrepreneurs that actually are the ones that are out there, the people that own the coffee shop around the corner and the car repair place and the small accounting business and the lawyer that helped prepare my, tax return and all the other entrepreneurs, the individuals who work for themselves, who own a business, who work for themselves and have no own boss and have sort of decided to forge their own path. The podcasters, the podcast production studios.
Wait, you get paid for this?
No,
Wait, do I get a check?
That's a whole other story. You don't get a check because you're not an employee. You're an entrepreneur. Fight for those checks.
My card says BITCH on it is my title. I'm not sure what
in
that means.
Chief.
In chief. Yes. Well, at least I got the chief part there. It took me years to get that.
So see, it really came out of this fascination around it. Because initially I was like, I'm going to write about this boom of entrepreneurship. Look at all these entrepreneurs. Look at all these co-working spaces. Look at all these startups. There's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. My friend Greg Kaplan, who happens to be a professor at University of Chicago in economics, at the time Princeton, brilliant young man. Greg said, well, are you sure about that? And I was like, yeah, look at all the startups. Look at all the WeWorks. Look at all these, we were in New York. We were in New York at the time. At the time, the WeWorks was the golden goose. And I was like, look at all these co-working spaces. Of course, this is a golden age of entrepreneurship. He's like, let me send you a paper. Let me send you some economic statistics. And what it said was that if you judge it by the number of businesses that people in America, I'm in Canada, but in America were starting, it was half the number of people were going into to work for themselves, going to business for themselves, self-employed from 1980, pretty much the year after I was born until now. It had been declining. That American entrepreneurship had actually been on the decline. Fewer people now are going out to work for themselves and starting their own business. And so on the one hand, you had this mythology. It's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. It's never been easier to be an entrepreneur. It's never been easier to raise money. It's never been easier to start a company. All you have to do is click, click, click. And, Squarespace, WeWork, and all these things are just going to take care of it for you. You don't need this. You don't need that. And you're off to the races raising millions. And the reality, which is that, wow, fewer people are actually starting businesses. Fewer people are going out to work for themselves. Fewer people are taking that risk. Fewer people are becoming entrepreneurs. And fewer people are actually succeeding at it. So what was happening? There was this disconnect between the mythology and the reality of entrepreneurship. And that's what the book is about.
All right.
Short answer, no. But I've been sitting in this chair for 2 years, so...
You and me, man, it's been a interesting ride. I don't think fun's the right word, but I mean, we've met a lot of great people that we probably wouldn't have met otherwise. So, what is the soul of the entrepreneur? Because I'm still trying to find mine.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's, I don't know. Mine's in I think I sold mine to the devil or something. But what is the soul of an entrepreneur? And give us a tease, if you would, on what you found in your research.
Sure. Well, the reason the book's called The Soul of an Entrepreneur is because that's what I wanted to write about. Every book that you read about entrepreneurship, and there are stores filled with them. Every podcast you listen to about entrepreneurship, it's about the mind of the entrepreneur, the brain of the entrepreneur, the success of the entrepreneur.
I'm supposed to have a brain?
Yeah, no, God, no. Instinct, the path of the entrepreneur, right? 5 ways you can, 6 ways you can, 10 ways, the top 5, the top 20, the best mythologies and ideas that you have to make your money, right? What are the 5 things Elon Musk did? What are the 10, ways that Steve Jobs wore his shoes? Andrew Carnegie recommends these 5 breakfast cereals. And it's all based on this idea of a process, a path. But when entrepreneurs and you talk to entrepreneurs, as I had done as a business journalist for many years, wrote for Business Week and the New York Times and various other publications that you won't know about and don't sound as impressive, and you interview entrepreneurs, I did for books and whatever, restaurant owners, people who own manufacturing businesses, street food sellers in Rio de Janeiro. And you talk to them about their businesses, they're not like, oh yeah, here's how I got from, 2% growth to 3% growth annually. And these are the 5 methods I do. They talk about their businesses in the terms of talking about things with the soul. They talk about their business and their life as an entrepreneur in the same way they talk about their life with their family, their life living in their place. They talk about their business and entrepreneurship in the same way they talk about spirituality and soul, or a passion or a hobby that they have. And I know personally, and from those around me, that entrepreneurship is very much a journey of the soul, regardless of whether you are successful, financially or not, or as the majority of entrepreneurs are, some kind of mix in between, right? Successful. I literally just finished doing my tax return. So you're hitting me at a particularly disgustingly raw moment.
The fun part of the entrepreneur.
Fun of an entrepreneur. Yeah.
The tax filings.
The write-off of an entrepreneur.
That is one of the nice things about being employed. Somebody else deals with all the paperwork for that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's always nice. It is the soul work. I've told people there is nothing that I mean, I don't know, maybe I've never done parenting, so I can't say I fully know what's something, because that seems like a whole fun road there, especially the diaper phase. But to me, and I don't know. I haven't done parenting, so I don't have that experience to fall back on. But just about anything in life, to me, nothing gives you self-actualization or forces self-actualization on you than being an entrepreneur, especially one without a VC backing you and lots of money. I started my first companies with sweat equity, and I think $2,000 when we the first successful company that went to multi-million-dollar status. We started with $2,000. We had maybe 4 months to make a profit and not run out of funds. A lot of it was sweat equity that we're putting into it, our own vehicles and stuff for what we're doing. But we funded it with literally $2,000. I write about it in my book. Within a year and a half, I started a second company on top of the first company that was just blowing up. For $4,000, we started a mortgage company. Both companies lasted 15 and 20 years. The mortgage company would be around today if it had been for the giant recession. The courier company, we were making so much money in the mortgage company, it finally became just a liability with cars and people driving around. And I'd moved to another state and was running it for some time. But, literally taking two companies and turning them into multi-million-dollar companies, hundreds of employees, really huge things from just that little seed money. And then we had a whole little empire of companies we started out of that. We were I was just smacking balls there for a while, home runs every time. And going through that experience, then of course watching what you talked about earlier, the VCs, the WeWorks, where I've seen millions and millions of dollars put behind, billions sometimes put behind, some 20-year-old dude. And, you hear about, who was it that wrote the unicorn book? A friend of mine, Dan Lyons, a friend of mine. Yeah, he wrote the unicorn book. And I forget the name of it. Sorry, Dan.
Oh, God. Dan wrote the blurb on the back of my book. So I really should know.
Oh, did he?
Disrupted.
I was just going to Google him, but seeing the amount of money that's blown out their butts and seeing some of the challenges, I just recently watched Clubhouse over the last 2 years ruin one of the greatest rollouts ever.
Wasn't that was like a hot second in time, right? That was perhaps the frothiest, most delicious blip in the frothy, delicious blips of like Silicon Valley social media BS PR marketing. There was like a 3-week phase where it's like, are you on Clubhouse? Are you Clubhouse? Are you doing Clubhouse? I'm on Clubhouse. Everyone's on Clubhouse. Everyone's on Clubhouse. And by the end of it, like people were just doing parodies. I'm like, well, I'm glad I never even touched that. I'm glad I watched that wave wash back out to sea.
The decisions they made were just abysmal. I mean, I'd never seen in recent memory, other than probably WeWork, so many bad, poor decisions, and a lot of it was just youth and inexperience and whatever. But millions and millions of dollars. So so do you try and profile who in the book who the normal entrepreneurs are, and maybe try and peel away some of that mythology so people can, because people get lost in that whole minutia of the mythology of like, ooh, I see all these people running around going, I'm a boss babe, and you're just like, you make $5 an hour. You're just doing some coaching or something. I'm not really sure what you're doing. I don't know. What do you try and do that in your book where you're pulling away the mythology? Or
yeah, that's exactly what the book is. I mean, it really is saying, listen, let's look beyond this to actually see what does it mean in a much deeper way to be an entrepreneur. And so it goes back to the beginning of actually how we got to this point. Right. How the definition of an entrepreneur even began, going back to, the 400 or 500 years ago in France when the term was first being used, and what that means. And then how that definition really over the 20th century, the latter part of the 20th century, became far more narrowly defined for various different reasons as this, high growth venture capital backed entrepreneur. And then I profile entrepreneurs in each different part of the book, looking at the different types, right? The Silicon, 2 students at Stanford who are starting some startup because that's the thing to do, and they feel like they have to do it, and just examines that kind of world through their eyes as they see it, and they start getting jaded about the reality of what it is. But also, the immigrant entrepreneur, a family of 2 Syrian brothers whose bakery was destroyed in Aleppo and came as refugees here to Toronto and completely rebuilt the bakery and brought their families over. And, that story of everything that meant to them, and other Syrian refugees who came around the same time. We'd all open these restaurant businesses. Entrepreneurs who do it for lifestyle. This wonderful woman, Tracy Obalski, who was working as kind of a high-end pastry chef at top restaurants in Manhattan, really well known, and absolutely hated it, totally burned out, wanted to surf, just wanted to do her own thing. And so she opened a bakery and cafe in Rockaway Beach, and, wakes up every day, goes surfing, bikes to her bakery, bakes, sells coffee, bikes back, goes surfing, has dinner, goes to bed, wakes up at 5 a.m., does it every day, and is living the dream, so to speak.
There you go.
Not getting rich, but lives the life of someone who we would all aspire to live like. Even talking about, those entrepreneurs who for whom it's all about, the soul is defined by the realization of their own values. And when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, we sell one shoe and we give another shoe to a poor child in Africa. But actually, the entrepreneur has been at some sort of business for a long time and actually realizes that the purpose of their entrepreneurship is greater than just the money they're making and what that's like. So it really does try to, through the eyes of many of these different types of entrepreneurs, which represent, a very small selection, obviously, what that's like for them, what it's like to define themselves and their own identity through entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I went through that cathartic time too. I went through that whole tunnel. As we mentioned earlier, the self-actualization process, it literally is your soul. Like you live, breathe your business. It's everything 24/7. There's no punch out time. I remember when I first came down to Las Vegas and built a mortgage company, just started to build a mortgage company for some Chinese investors. Or they were from China, I should say. It was so nice to have someone else's money be in the bank, and I didn't have to worry about I had to worry about whether we were going to make a profit or not, but I knew what we were building because I built it before. And, but it was so nice to be able to go home at 5 and not have to think about it so much like I would all of my other companies. And being able to punch out at 5 is a whole different thing. I used to dream like all the time of what I would be doing the next day. Like that would be my dreams, who I was going to fire, what meetings I was going to have. If I dreamed about a beautiful girl, that was like a miracle once in a million days. It was always about business. So you would dream business. You would live, breathe, eat it 24/7. Even if you were at home trying to watch a movie or out trying to watch a movie or have a nice dinner with someone,
it gets absorbed into such a central part of your identity, and you can't separate yourself from it.
And you get a call. Call. Hey, the place is on fire. Somebody again.
You're like, did we set it this time? No. Okay.
Yeah. And it just never ends. But I went through that cathartic experience where, and it helped that I had a business partner finally betray me and step out of the picture. But I went through that cathartic thing where we became hugely successful, had, all the employees. I wish I would have written down all the stories of all my employees' adventures. I would have like 4 books if I could remember them all. But the fun of being an entrepreneur, the employees, and my business partner did fry out. That's why he quit. He fried out. He's just like, I'm tired of this. After 13 years, I'm done. And I don't like being an entrepreneur anymore. And so he went off and did his thing. Me, I went through a great thing where once I got rid of him and replaced him with a really cheap secretary, which was pretty amazing for the amounts we were being paid. I went through a phase where I'm like, I don't need all these employees. I can make a lot of money, and the phase, of course, I built my companies. People hear the 2,000 and 4,000 numbers. They don't realize this was back in the day where you had to buy an office, and these were brick and mortar companies. These weren't like buying a GoDaddy website and you're selling your business. These were brick and mortar companies. In fact, our first company had to buy regulation and licenses and insurance and stuff. So that was a heady time to start a business, because you didn't just start a GoDaddy website. You bought the business, paid a bunch of money for the phone company to show up and install the lines and stuff. I went through that cathartic period, and now I'm in a much better place. Kind of like where I don't really want to run a 100-person business anymore. I really like what I do and try and maximize my money, and I can earn almost as much as I used to earn back then without all the headache. And I like it a lot better. The quality of my life is better. And so I went through that sort of gauntlet you're talking about, where maybe I found someone in my soul or whatever was left. I don't know.
I think that's it. Entrepreneurship is, so the way the myth is, you're going to have a brilliant idea. You're going to put it out there in the world. People are going to give you money for it. And then you're going to be rich and successful and change the world. And let's say that happens. The 99% of people, that it's not going to happen. Their idea isn't brilliant. They're not going to find the money. The execution's going to be
your ideas suck,
right? That's reality. And I include myself in that, mediocre pool. But, even if that happens to you, you still then have to confront what you do next. Because it is not just a straight monetary thing. It's not like, well, I'm going to work myself up to this level, and then when I get to this level, I'm going to be paid $1 million. Then at this level, I'll be paid $2 million, and then at $10 million, and then I get, at this age, I'm going to retire. When you're an entrepreneur, it's almost, all the entrepreneurs I talk to, it's never about the money. Money is is a marker of success, and there's an ambition around it, but it's not about making a certain amount. And so, the entrepreneur's journey is constantly being redefined, and they're constantly being challenged by their own goals and determinations of why they're doing this, right? Why am I getting up each day and doing this thing that I do? Whether I have 100 employees or 1,000 employees or no employees, why do I keep doing this instead of going out and finding a job and unloading that mental burden, right? The French economist who basically coined the term entrepreneur had been in use in France in different ways, but he was the one who really sort of defined it in 1734, I think. Richard Cantillon, he said, there are two types of people. There's the person who is the employee and they get paid for the work they do. They get paid a daily or weekly or monthly wage, whether they're the farmer or the sort of king's, advisor. And then everyone else is the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur, all entrepreneurs, whether they're poor or rich, whatever field they're in, are linked by two things. One is freedom. They have the freedom to decide how to work, where to work, what they want to work on, the way they approach it, and risk. And risk is, the fact that they don't know if they're going to get paid or how much they'll get paid or whether their venture will be successful or not. And that tension between freedom and risk is really the core of the soul of the entrepreneur. And that's the thing that every entrepreneur constantly is reevaluating and dancing with that tension, because it's never perfect. It's never in perfect harmony or balance. As soon as you take on more risk, you're losing a little bit of the freedom. As soon as you're going for a bit more freedom, you're taking on greater risk, and you can't have one without the other. And I think that, what you're talking about with your own experiences is that dance that all entrepreneurs do between freedom and risk. And that's really the essential part of what it is to be an entrepreneur, regardless of the field you're in, regardless of the years of, you've been doing it, regardless of how many companies you started or how many companies succeeded or how many companies failed or how much money you make or how much money you lost. It's all about that freedom and risk. That's the defining characteristic. And that's the trap, the dance, the conversation that's constantly happening within the entrepreneur's own head.
Yeah, it's never a final thing. Like I had this thing, and I imagine you talk about it in your book, but I had this image that once I built an empire companies, I pretty much would be set for life, and it would be an easy roll. But it's a constant fluid state of changing market dynamics, business models, mistakes that you can make. Those are always fun. But you can build a company or a business model and run it for a decade. You can run it for years, and then all of a sudden the market changes, the regulation changes, or sometimes the ways of processing the business change, or something comes up that you start bleeding
some
money
sort of pandemic, some sort of global
like a pandemic,
like
or a 2008 housing crisis recession that wipes out every business that you own.
Your entire supply lines in the eastern cities of Ukraine, those risks are. Those risks are huge. Those are big external risks. And then there's the everyday risks. Your manager steals from you. Someone in your business that's a key person gets sick with cancer. Tastes change, right? Yeah. You have your own health issues. You have a family and your priorities change. I mean, all these risks are constant. Nothing is static. And even for the entrepreneur, the lucky ones who create some business that has this consistent, autopilot level of success, which they exist. They work, right? There are a few lucky people. Even those entrepreneurs are not like, well, I'm good. I'm set. Off to Florida with me. They get to Florida and they're like, this town really needs bagels. Or, I was just in Mexico with my family on vacation, and we were renting a condo from these people who this guy was an entrepreneur and from Toronto also, and who owned the unit that we were renting next to. And he's, he owns a trucking business, but while he's down there, he's helped do like interior building for restaurants because he used to do that in Toronto. It's like he didn't need to do it. There was no financial reason, He's just like, well, you know what? Yeah, you need help with the restaurant. All right, well, I have some experience in it. Like, it's even then the risk is that restlessness. That restlessness gets to them. Entrepreneurs need that. They want to exercise that freedom. They're not like, no, I'm good. I've started enough businesses. I'm going to go back to the beach and have my Corona. It's like 2 hours into that, beach, they're like, oh, what the hell else am I going to do? All right, let's start a business.
One of the problems is our mindset, because we see things from how things can be better, and it becomes a muscle that you develop. And so, you see, I get mental, like I go into places. I think I was recently at my gym, and you see how things are managed. You see how things operate. I think I probably still do mentally, but I used to be really present in thinking about it. But I would walk into most businesses and try and figure out their business model and their money. And my psychiatrist said I was doing that. He's like, you would normally be insane, but because you use it for a business purpose, it's probably okay what you do, Chris, because I would count things and measure things and like keep different databases in my head. And but I'd look at them and be like, okay, how do these guys make a profit? And then sometimes, their business is so awful, whether it's like customer service or product delivery or execution or, you name it. You just sit and you look at them and go, how the F are these people making money, right? How the hell are they making? I can't figure it out, because these guys are really bad at what they're doing. But, and so you walk into businesses, you look at everything in life, you look at, anything you can hand me, I'll probably look at it, study, and be like, I wonder how they made this. And it's a muscle that once you make it and you maintain it too, it just kind of, you're like, should I go into this business? This kind of looks interesting. What is this?
Right. And an instant way for you to lose money. Like that's, how many restaurants have been started by brilliant entrepreneurs and business people who like love this kind of food and think they could do better. And it's like, oh, here's your shirt. Take it to the cleaners, because that's where you're going, my friend. Oh, you love steakhouses? Good, great.
Yeah. We did that with a lot of little companies that we start up, or companies we do a business alone thing, and so we get insights into businesses, and then sometimes we'd be like, well, we should maybe take them over or whatever, or bring them into our companies, and sometimes they just wouldn't work out, and a lot of ideas that we would try that just wouldn't work out, and you just be like, okay, well, just let's stick with what makes us money. But you just have that muscle, but it's maddening. Like I said, my psychiatrist used to say, because I used to suffer really bad anxiety in the early years, and I had to get medicated for that, basically depression. I grew up, I started with it when I was 16, where I was checking doors, and I had the CEO disease, the ADD disease, which I don't know, that's a whole book in and of itself. But it was maddening, because you live business all your life, you live, eat, breathe, you do it, you're constantly looking at business models, thinking about business models. It's a tough place to be. And I don't think people realize, like you say, it's, people see the glam and glory, and they're like, it's easy, but it's not.
Yeah. I think what a lot of people sort of project, and this is that grass is greener, is, you're your own boss. You have this unlimited freedom, but they don't really think of the risk. I mean, they think of it in the sense of like, well, I could never do that. But what they don't actually think about is the sort of day-to-day burden of that risk. So even for someone who, is a small entrepreneur like myself, completely self-employed, I have no employees, I write books, I write articles, I give talks, right? That's the extent of my entrepreneurial empire, so to speak. And again, did the taxes today, so the empire is like Russia's, shrinking. Yes. Today's podcast brought to you by Rosneft. But I was talking with someone, a fellow parent of my kid's school, the other day, and she was, she works for the city as a job in the bureaucracy of Toronto. Lovely person. She's like, it's amazing what you do. Like, you come up with ideas, you write books. Like, I wish I could do that. And I was like, honestly, Tamara, like, I wish I could work with you and get a pension and just like do my job and have a very clearly defined thing. Cause I just finished a book and I'm literally staring at a blank calendar of nothingness. And like, I have a bunch of ideas, but like, now I know I have to like work on them for months and try to get to something where I can sell it before I have months before anyone will pay me for anything. And that mental burden is just going to build up inside me as this tremendous ball of horrible tension. And then I'm going to do it again in 2 years. And like, it's like, oh, but the grass on the other side of just like every 2 weeks, you got to check, and here's your vacation days, and here's your thing, and here's your benefits. And, I got to talk to Jeff in accounting, and Susan in, marketing, but Prita in management's got this other thing. It's like, that world is so foreign to me, and it just seems horrendous and horrible. But like, part of me envies that certainty of it and the lack of risk, right? The only risk is you lose your job and then you find another job. They're out there, we're at the lowest unemployment in history or something like that. So it's so interesting, right? That mind, the way we project around the sort of reality of what that is. And I think for entrepreneurs, that reality just becomes different. And the longer they're in it, it's but it's still always hard to like wrap your head around what your reality is as an entrepreneur. There's still this disbelief where you're like, is this really the way I live?
It's so funny. I look back on it now and I'm just like, did I really do all that crap? And I'm tired. You live it so much. I just got done writing my first book just barely last year. It took me 54 years to write, evidently.
Mazel tov.
And you get the book done and then everyone looks at you like, okay, what's next, book boy? Right. What do you got next coming up? You have to start thinking about the next book and you're like, wait, did I start something? Like I have to do more, and then you're like, hey, I just wrote this book, and everyone's like, you got to go out and promote it. Yeah, go chase that around. You're like, wait, people just don't buy this damn thing because I wrote it. Like, and there's like, I don't know, was it like 300,000 new books that are published every month?
Oh yeah, there's nothing more dispiriting than walking into a bookstore for an author. I mean, it's just maybe J.K. Rowling's like she's got it covered, but everyone else, it's crushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, it's been a great experience, but it was hard to write the book, especially the first time. I'm hoping it will be easier a little bit the second time. At least I developed some muscle of writing every day. But yeah, you're just always like, what is that sign? What is that song that all the ladies like? What have you done for me lately? It's that's the definition of entrepreneurs. Like, okay, well, yeah, you did that yesterday and that was really cool, but what are you doing now, buddy? What's next?
What's the next thing? What's the next big thing, right? And I think that's it. There's this idea that like, I'm going to do this and it's going to get to this point and then I'm going to sell it or I'm going to exit and then, I'm good. And then it's like, well, okay, let's say that happens and you hit the nail on the head. Then what, right? Or, so I think again, it's that idea of the entrepreneurs that were most in tune with the soul were the ones who realized that they truly found joy and meaning in the actual work day to day of what it is, and what they were able to bring to that in terms of their community or in terms of their values or in terms of their ideas. That part of it is kind of what really the healthy entrepreneurs are able to sort of get at, because there's going to be businesses that do well. There's going to be businesses that do poorly. There's going to be a lot of stuff in between. There's going to be good years. There's going to be bad years. There's going to be years that are a mix of both. And that's in every industry, in the life of every entrepreneur. And I think that's coming to terms with that is a really difficult thing. And it's something that very few entrepreneurs do, certainly early on. It takes a long time to kind of come to that mature realization that like, it's not a race. It's not a sprint, and it's not really even a marathon. It's like a long hike along a never-ending Appalachian trail with peaks and valleys and beautiful views along the way. And you better enjoy the smell of pine and, poop in the woods, because that's it. That's it, man.
There you go. The and the journey is you have to build something. You'll build it, and they will come, or hopefully they'll come. There's no guarantee, like there was in the movie, and I don't think even there was in the movie.
I'm pretty sure that was like the ghost of Ty Cobb gave him a guarantee. It's like I guarantee it. Here's a contract
from a ghost. Wow, I've had those dreams, but usually it was involving vodka, where someone appears and says, "Oh, sure, it'll work out." But part of the problem is as an employee, you step into a business, and everything's formed for you. You step into a pre-molded prefab. Okay, here's what you do. You do this, and you do this little box thing, and you're good. As an entrepreneur, you have to go out and create it. Like I remember writing the book last year, just sitting around going, no one's going to read this piece of trash. Like this is stupid. At one point, the editing was the hardest part, and just being like, I'm putting in all these hours, and I'm putting all this blood, sweat, and tears. Is anyone going to care or read about this stupid thing? Like you're like, I'm going to sell like one copy. You start having all these self doubts that you have to deal with. all this nightmarish stuff that goes to your head, and like you say, it's a winding journey that seems to almost have no destination, where you're going through it and you're just like, is this even going to work out? One of my friends, Dennis Yu, and I think a few people use this as a joke. Now it's kind of become meme-ish on LinkedIn, but they talk about, they're like, oh, here's another guy who's a overnight entrepreneur, but they've been building it for 8 years. Like, no one ever talks about how, you always see the profiles. Hey, here's this guy who or this woman who overnight success. She took her business, and in the last 2 years, it went from like $50,000 to $10 million. But they never say, well, she was working on that, making $50,000 for the first 10 years.
There's a woman I wrote about in the book, Jessica Dupart, who's a Black woman from New Orleans, grew up braiding hair in her parents' bathroom of her friends. She would sneak them in the back door or through the window in high school. And then eventually, worked at salons, worked at barbershops, had a salon she opened up with a partner. Her and the partner split up, started again, built another salon from scratch. No loans, no banks. As a Black woman, no banks giving money to a Black woman in New Orleans. Totally self-financed, bootstrap. Hurricane Katrina wipes that all away. Of course, no insurance is paying her. Rebuilds it up from scratch. Hair salon opens up a month later. A stylist leaves a hair blow dryer on, place burns to the ground, rebuilds again, goes back working for other people while she's rebuilding her business, starts selling hair products out of a thing, and starts making videos with someone who does nails in the salon. And the videos are really good. They're super funny, and they start taking off on social media. And she builds this hair product business, this beauty business, Kaleidoscope Beauty, and it takes off and it grows really fast. And then all of a sudden it grows incredibly fast. Now she moved to Atlanta. She lives in a massive mansion with a zoo in it. I knew her, in between buying buying the first luxury car and the zoo. I was seeing her at the cusp of it. And we were talking about this. She's like, everyone thinks that this is, me just coming up with the stuff and Instagram made it take off. But it's 20 years of my life of blood, sweat, and tears just to get to this point where I can then go to the next point and enjoy that level of success. And again, where she goes, it's going to continue going in all these different directions. But again, that's that mythology, right? It's that success should be instant. It should be gratification. You should be a brilliant student in your dorm at Stanford one day and then be showered with millions of dollars the next. That's the way it's supposed to work. It really is this Disney fairy tale notion of what this is supposed to be about. And it's not. It's a lifelong journey that never ends until that life ends, pretty much.
Yeah, and people don't count the practice and fails. I started my first business at 18. Then I tried doing some other things, and those failed with some, different partners and different iterations, where I was trying to get out of the construction business. That was my first company. And then, because I didn't want to be in blue collar all my life. I'm like, I can't be doing this work when I get old. I just can't. I can see my body's not going to hold up for this. And, it's hard work being in construction, subcontracting. So, so there was the first business that was successful. There was 3 or 4 iterations. I've got business cards in my box of them all. And then finally, hitting on the big multi-million-dollar one that I hit on, I think it was 22. And so there was 3 or 4 years where I was kind of trying to find the next big thing. And so no one counts those failures, and all those little practices are part of that multi-million-dollar company. I wrote about this in my book. I'm like, here's my failures, and here's also some of the stuff that I learned from some great CEOs that actually kind of finished what I call my CEO final training, my final, what I needed to really complete the package to start smacking stuff out of the park, or at least having the ability to. And no one counts those. So I don't know if that counted for that young lady you mentioned who had 20 years over her thing, all the failures, but no one counts that. You technically need to add on 4 or 5 years prior to my first multi-million-dollar company of the practices and failures. And that really was part of the whole journey that completed, because I couldn't have ever done that without those 4 or 5 failures. I know a lot of VC people do the same thing, or not VCs, but people work for VCs. You know, they bet that these guys are going to have 3 or 4 failures and turnovers, but they bet that when they finally hit the home run, it's you know, a unicorn.
And they're wrong a lot of the time. That's the thing. Everyone thinks these guys in Patagonia vests are these brilliant geniuses that pick the winner every time, but you know, their firm might have picked one winner once, and they're still riding off the coattails of that investment in Facebook or whatever. It doesn't mean that they're so good at picking out what's the next great thing. And yet, you know, and again, they're investing in like a fractional percentage of the companies that start up and actually make money, right? They're not investing in the construction firms. They're not investing in the coffee shop. They're not investing in these other businesses that, you know, could do well, but it doesn't fit in their wheelhouse. And there's a lot of marketing that goes into it, right? A lot of that money buys stories in the press and ads and things. You're like, wow, this is amazing. Look at this tremendous boom of, you know, mattress companies that you can order online like that. Wow, these guys are geniuses. And then 2 years later, like, wow, look at all these bankrupt mattress companies.
Or WeWork, you know, or
Theranos. Yes.
Theranos.
Yeah, both those miniseries have just come out at the same time. So take your pick of which you know entrepreneur rise and fall story that you want to watch on your streaming service of choice.
Yeah, you know, and you actually make me think of something. You know, people always kind of point to the glam, the successes, the top things. And I remember when I started my first company, and everyone's like, "No, that wasn't my first company. It was my one that became a multi-million-dollar company." I didn't really know what I was doing on my first company, where I knew that I was an entrepreneur. Like that wasn't a thing back then. Like everyone's like today, where it's like you need to run around and be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur. I'm just like I got fired from McDonald's, needed a job, and started up what I learned from my dad as a kid in subcontracting. And
amazing, you got fired from McDonald's. Let's just
the story's pretty amazing if you're reading the book. It was for having long rocker hair and wearing Satanic Van Halen concert T-shirts because it was a real
Satanic and Van Halen together.
Satanic and Van Halen together. Yeah, it's a fun story in the book and how it turns out. I go back and I shake the hand of the guy who fired me about 3 months later and tell him how much I'm making. But yeah, he was real religious here. It was here in Utah. You can figure that one out. But yeah, evidently my Satanic Van Halen T-shirts of 1984 concert, because I don't know, maybe it was the baby who's smoking on the cover of that album. Maybe that was it. But yeah, we all know that Van Halen is clearly of the devil worshiping type. You know, this is the 80s, so you know. Back then, who was running around in the 80s? Wasn't it Al Gore's wife doing that album thing?
Yeah, this was obviously, you hit it right before the rap phase.
Yeah.
So Van Halen was, I guess, the hardest core thing that in Provo, Utah, or wherever.
It was pretty insane. I mean, I was wearing Aussie. I mean, maybe you can throw Aussie.
Okay, fair enough. That's like straight up, bad head eating.
But no one ever does like a book on the fails. And what I started to lead in with my segue was, you know, I remember when I started my multi-million-dollar company, we were trying to get credit. We were trying to, you know, get some traction, maybe get some money. And I remember hearing the term, you know, 99% of businesses fail in the first 2 years. And I'm like, holy fucking Christ, I gotta climb that mountain.
Yeah.
And that was the first time it had hit me. And I realized what sort of odds I was up against, and I doubled down and like a dog, I just sunk my teeth in, and a pit bull, and I'm just like, I'm not going to be that fucking guy. I'm making this thing, and I realized how stacked the odds were, and it made me work harder. But no one writes about that 99% that fail.
Yeah. Well, there is this thing, failure porn, right? And it talks about it's a genre of entrepreneur porn, and it is that like, you know, here's the story of my successful business. But first, I'm going to tell you a quick little funny anecdote about the business I had that failed and the lesson I learned from that. But, you know, so much of that failure is out of people's hands. In the book, I write about a man named Seth Nitschke, who is actually a big fan of punk and the Clash. So would approve of those choices. Not Van Halen, though. Seth's a rancher in the Central Valley, California. He started a grass-fed beef company, his wife and really just is like a one-man rancher, and he doesn't own his own ranch, so he's trucking cattle all around this area. It's costly and expensive, takes a lot of time, but land is so expensive in this area. And I went out and spent a couple of days with him when he was really at the peak of struggles. The bank had just turned him down for a mortgage on a home and ranch where he would have his own land and be able to run his cattle out of the land, and it was just crushing. He said it was like getting kicked in the balls by a horse, which was like a metaphor I could really understand as a non-farmer. And he still kept at it, and he's still doing it today. And he's gotten back up, and things are going well. But I think that the problem with the failure thing is that people sort of ascribe it this certain thing. It's like, oh, I want to hear a story about someone who failed, and then they learned from that, and they never failed again. And the reality for entrepreneurs is like failure is a constant force that's going to be there, but it is not the be all and end all. You will have lots of failures every day, multiple times throughout the day or every year. And it's what you do with those failures, those mistakes, those misfortunes, those things that are completely out of your control that defines you as an entrepreneur. How you deal with failure is more important than sort of like moving on from it in this great way. And so, yeah, the stuff about failure is it's just kind of this, it's like this checklist failure. And that the mythology of the entrepreneur is like, first you're going to do something and you're going to fail, and you're going to fail spectacularly, fail big, and then you'll have your success and you'll be able to talk about that failure. But like, a lot of people failed because of things that were out of their control, right? And they constantly do, or because of bad decisions that they made that at the time seemed like good decisions, or the good people they hired. And we can all look back and with that 2020 crystal clear hindsight and be like, well, I failed because of this. And so, lesson number 2 is blah, blah, blah. But the circumstances are so completely different for everyone else that if I did the exact same thing you did, I would probably, and vice versa. If you tried something that I failed at, you might succeed, right? I think that the thing for me is that entrepreneurship is so individual. It's so down to in person's individual personality and circumstances, their background, the privilege that they have of where they actually come from and what that is, right? Those set of personal circumstances and the time they're in, where they are, that it's such a personal journey that it's very hard to kind of universalize it. Entrepreneurs have to do this. Entrepreneurs act like this. People are like, I've done so many podcast interviews, like, well, what's the personality of an entrepreneur like? Well, I'm like, well, I've met super over the top extroverted entrepreneurs who are super confident, love to talk and whatever. And I met like quiet church mouse entrepreneurs, and both of them, can be either successful or failures. And it has nothing to do with that thing. It suits, every race, creed, class, economic level, personality type has entrepreneurs in it. Everyone has an entrepreneur in the family. There's no one type that kind of unites them all, except for that desire for sort of freedom and the ability to tolerate the risk that goes with it.
Yeah. And no one, and like you mentioned with the failure porn, no one writes about the people who fail and never come back. They do. Right.
Or fail not in some crazy spectacular way, but like in a everyday mid-league way, right?
Yeah.
Like that the line of credit ran out and they had to close down the business and take a job somewhere. And then they started something on the side, and it doesn't really take off enough for them to become this thing. And like, that's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. And rather than saying, well, they don't matter, what matters is only the ones who are successful. Actually, if we study the ones that are in the middle, we might discover more interesting things, or more things that we can learn from than studying the career of Elon Musk. This is what every young entrepreneur on LinkedIn, right? How many fucking times have I like seen someone post an Elon Musk video of him talking about starting a business, or like Simon Sinek, the same Simon Sinek video over and over and over on LinkedIn. This is what I love about LinkedIn. And it's like, this is my hero, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. Like, look at what he does. Look at how he says, this is who I emulate. It's like, what are you possibly going to learn from Steve Jobs? Random guy starting, like, it's like, this is such a singular, one of a kind individual. Like, what are you possibly learning from this person? It's like, if you just read that biography one more time, you're going to like nail it. right?
Or if you do the Theranos thing, whatever.
You wear the turtleneck, or you act like Elon Musk. You're like, you need to divorce your first wife and act like an asshole to everyone else. Like that's the lesson that people take from it, right?
Wow.
Oh, he only got 2 hours of sleep, so I'm only getting 2 hours of sleep too. There was this young biz bro here in Toronto, entrepreneur that owns this, I don't know, chain of restaurants or something. I was at some conference and there was this other guy who has this huge thing of ad agencies. Like he's huge worldwide. And he's like, oh, I'm only down to 4 hours of sleep now. Isn't that great? Like he was bragging to the older guy. Like this is his thing. Like he's trying to achieve that level of what it is. It's putting it all in this box and thinking that you have to act in this certain way. And you could be an entrepreneur in any way to suit your own personality, to suit your life, to suit your lifestyle, to suit your values. Like the entrepreneurship is what allows you to take your work and shape it to that, not the other way around. You don't have to be an entrepreneur in a certain way. And the failure porn, it's just part of that myth making. I think that has to be eradicated.
You see it all the time in the Silicon Valley crowd, in the startup VC crowd. And I'm not trying to shame the VC crowd, but the startup companies. I know a lot of guys who are, they're working really hard to do what they do, but sometimes that startup porn. I've been critical of Elon Musk and a lot of things he does. He comes from a different sort of avenue. He came from rich parents, number one, so he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He easily slid those investments into what he did. Did he have some good ideas? Yeah, he came from Stanford group with all the other guys, the PayPal mafia kids that came out of, who's the Facebook board member who was pretty toxic. Peter Thiel. I'm probably getting sued now.
Literally sitting in Putin's ear right now, telling him what to do.
I'm sure, the Putin in Florida or the Putin in Russia? I'm sorry. Which reminds me of the 4-hour sleeping thing, which turns out that's just a Adderall addiction. The story behind that. But no, that whole crowd that just kind of came up together and helped each other out, and they hit bigly with the PayPal. There's a certain thing, like I didn't have that when I went through my thing, and I think a lot of the VCs, even though they give these kids a lot of money, these kids are still living in maybe a dorm somewhere they set up, and they're still living on top ramen. That's the reason VCs really like these guys, is they work really cheap and for free. If they hit the unicorn, big times. But they know these guys are going to work their butt off. Whereas VCs probably aren't going to be money, because I'm like, I got to go and I don't run on alcohol anymore. That phase is gone. And it's just lots of high caffeinated coffee at this point. But there's a point where the old man goes, my back hurts, I got to go take a nap. But it's an interesting journey, and I think it's good what you're doing in peeling back the gloss of it, or the porn of it, success porn, failure porn that I see everywhere, because people buy into it and then they think it's easy, and you're like, you have no idea. Like I kind of thought it was kind of easy too. I thought it was easy once you attained a level of success. You had the hundreds of employees, multi-million-dollar companies, you're making so much money, you're throwing like 10 grand a month into your investment accounts. You got more money you can freaking stupid spend sometimes. And I thought that would be a level of success. But what people don't realize is you're basically raising this balance beam, or what is the circus thing? When they do the balance thing, the high wire. You're building a high wire, and the more successful you get, the more money you make, the more employees you have that you're beholden to make, it's really weird when you look at, okay, I got to worry about paying my bills for this month. And then suddenly you're like, 100 people like depend on me every month. And if I fuck up, I fuck like 100 people's lives up. That's a whole different level of pressure. And the higher you go, the farther you can fall. My business partner, when he left my company, he thought he could go out and get 5 figures a month just because he left the company, and you're just like, hey, I'll just go, I just go tell them I make 5 figures a month, and they'll pay me it in quadruplicate. And he found out the hard way, it's not that easy. It just doesn't, it just doesn't happen. That he was living a dream that I built. And so you have this high wire that, if that, the higher you go, the more you look down and go, if I fuck up, it's a long way to the bottom. Like, it's just not like if I fuck up now and, I'm filing bankruptcy for whatever reason, it's whatever my bills are, But, when you're running a multi-million-dollar company or a series of multi-million-dollar companies like I was, it was a long way down, man. It was a long way down. And people don't realize, they just think. I used to have people that come into me and they go, "You're rich." And I'm like, "Yeah, and you took all the money." But they would be like, "It must be so nice to do something you love. You don't have to worry. You don't have to work hard anymore." And I'm like, I work harder now than ever running 3 companies. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it just gets
living the
harder.
dream, Chris.
Living the dream. Living the success.
And that's
part.
it, right? That's the, that's it in a nutshell. It's like, it takes, every entrepreneur realizes that in some way, whether it's when they hit that rock bottom or when they're at the top or somewhere in the middle, going up or going down in those cycles. They're like, why am I doing this? What does this actually mean to me? And I think we all have to confront that and actually deal with it. And only by confronting it and deal with it and having those conversations with yourself and maybe with a therapist or a spiritual leader, loved one, do you actually wrap your head around what it means and why you do it? Because if you can't answer that question, if it's just like, well, I'm doing it to make money, then you're going to hit that wall at some point.
That was the hardest part for me too. All of my companies, I started from an investor CEO mindset of just smacking them out of the park. And I never done the entrepreneur journey of finding something you love. My podcast is the only thing I've ever built that I sincerely love. I'm passionate about it. I don't care if you pay me or not for this thing. I love it. I love the brilliant authors like you guys that come on the show, and you guys spend hundreds of thousand hours researching something, and I get to ask all the cool questions. We've had people on here like Peter Strzok and other people that, I'd watch them do interviews on TV and I, they just do the soundbite, ask him stupid idiot questions. The media always doesn't do that, but they did it particularly with him. And I'm like, I want to find out more about my constitution, my government, what's going on. And no one's asking these questions. And so I get to ask those questions when we have people like that on, that no one asks in the media, and we get to cover stuff. And we also get to find out there's a human being there, as opposed to, some of the hits that some of these people take from the media. And, it's, well, you did this or whatever. And, they've got 3 minutes to save their reputation on national TV. So I love what I do now. It's the first time in 50 years that I have something that I love. And I didn't even love it the first 10 years. So when COVID started, we changed the format of the show. We opened it up to authors and everybody else. Before that was Silicon Valley tech stuff. Yeah. And I just burned out on it. And when COVID started, I'm like, I want to talk about something about everything, but also shit that matters. Silicon Valley matters, but I'm just like, there's so much more to talk about in life that matters that we're not covering. And, so yeah, falling in love with something and being passionate about it really can get you through the darkness. And I never had that. And so that's probably why I drank pretty hard for 20 years.
Now you're having your coffee. You're back in Utah diet of like lots of sugar and God.
Well, we stay away from the sugar.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And again, like if you're comparing your success with this now, which perhaps is not as financially lucrative on a balance sheet or in pure numbers as some of the other businesses that you talked about, what would you take, right? What would I say? All right, Chris, you got to pick, which one do you take? Like,
oh, this one. Yeah. And I can make the kind of money that I used to make, and we're on the way doing it with the speaker thing and the book and all that sort of stuff. We just got to get through the COVID times. We were making incredible money before COVID, with events and everything I used to do back then. And so, yeah, it took a little bit of a turn for the last 2 years, but I can make that kind of money again. And the beautiful part is the world's changed enough where, with speaking and touring and being in a different place. And of course now, like, it's so much easier. Like I said, our first successful businesses were all brick and mortar. I mean, you had to sign an office lease for 3 years, build an office, fill it with people, get the secretary up front, get the phone lines installed, which was
chairs. Don't forget the
chairs. We would go in. I remember the first company. We were in building some sort of IKEA desk that we got from a Office Depot. These particle board desks, and the amount of work that you would have to put in and investment you would have to put in before you could even start making a dime. You'd have to wait for the Department of Corporations to approve you, and the Department of this to approve you, and then it was insane. And so now the world's so much different. I mean, oh, you want to start a business? $20 on GoDaddy, you got a .com. Well, you're a CEO of a business now. So it's so much nicer. But yeah, the peace of mind that I have now, where I don't have partners that I'm carrying all over the world and giving them half the money they didn't deserve. Like I say, my last partner, I replaced, he went from 5 figures. I replaced him with some chick for $2,000 who was basically a secretary. I mean, that's how much work the guy was doing. So, I love the place I'm in. And I think, like, you've talked about some of these other folks, they reach a point where they try and do more of what's good for their soul and good for who they are, rather than try and kill themselves. Because I mean, there's no soul in that. It's I don't know, it's insane. But it was fun at the time.
That's a memoir. Put that on the cover.
Oh yeah.
Well,
there's a whole book of it.
I'm glad to have been able to share a bit of it with you, and to be here. I hope I can come back when I sling the next book.
Please do.
It's
Please
coming
do.
November. Stay tuned or reach back.
There you go. Do you have a title? Do you want to give it away?
Yes, I have the like printed manuscript here. The Future is Analog.
The Future is Analog. There you go. Yeah. I love that title.
So I wrote a book prior to Soul of an Entrepreneur. I had a book come out called The Revenge of Analog, which is actually the best-selling book I had. That's by financial success. Not quite a home run, but a decent RBI, I guess.
There you go.
Maybe like a walk. And the new one looks at this notion that the future we were promised by Silicon Valley and others was that it was going to be all digital, and everything's going to move toward digital, and that's going to be where we're going. And then 2 years ago, we were kind of all thrust into that. It's like, here you go, work from home, school from home, all your events are virtual, your speaking is virtual, like everything's virtual, your friends, your social life, you can even go to church and synagogue online. Like, this is it. This is the world. This is the future. And at first we're like, cool. Wow. What's this Zoom? Great. And then after 3 weeks, we're like, this sucks. Get me out of this house. Give me something. Tell me there's more future than this. And so the book's really about what we learned in the past few years and what kind of future we actually want to build.
Yeah, hopefully we learn from this. Well, that was nice. Back to normal.
Hopefully we learn from this should be the motto for the past 5 to 20 years. But we'll see.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. This has been a great discussion. Give me your plugs, your .com, so people can find you on the internet.
Like my plugs? Yeah. This is real. Well, it might be thin, but it's real. David Sachs, wherever you can find me on Google, I guess. Sachs David on Twitter, though I've really, again, tried to stay off it. And David Sachs, or Sachs David, maybe. SAX on LinkedIn. If you write me a message, if you write me an email, if you write me a tweet, if you write me on LinkedIn, if you invite me to join your network on LinkedIn, I will always say yes, unless you look like a full scammer. So if you have Bitcoin in your title, it might be like.
Or how about lead generation? That's always
lead generation.
Lead generation.
I could use some leads. Oh, I got those. It's like, hey, like we'd love to collaborate. We help authors become bestsellers. I was like, great, good for you. Who are these authors? Cool. Okay.
I like the ones that within 5 you don't really see. You're like, well, they're not a lead gen person, and then within 5 seconds of you hitting the approval button, they're pinging you. Hey, did you want to do a 15-minute call?
How can we collaborate?
Yeah. What I always tell them? I go, well, I'm a consultant and I get paid by, the minute, like an attorney. So if you go to my, paid by, I think my Canva, I think it is, or something like that, or some site that I use for that. I'm like, you can use this link. So if you want 15 minutes with me, you can buy it. So there you go. I just sent you a LinkedIn request.
Your own lead gen.
We'll have this on LinkedIn tomorrow. Thanks for coming by the show, Dave. We really
My pleasure, Chris. I hope the outro music is as bitchin' as the intro music.
Oh, wow. You caught me on the off. We don't have outro music. We just roll out. How's that?
What?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's it? You don't have like...
Note to self.
Friday. Make sure to come back for...
We need to have outro music. I really should have outro music, but Well, we just go out with this, so I'll do it. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Go make sure you see all of our groups on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those different places we got. The Chris Voss Show is everywhere. Just search for it. Also, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. You can see all the wonderful videos we have over there. One plug I should make, there's a playlist on the YouTube channel where it has all of our book authors on the show, and you can like literally play that for like 50 trillion hours. I mean, it's probably 1,000 authors on there. Yeah, you literally play that from beginning to end, and then you'll learn so much and be as smart as I am. But you will actually be smarter. Actually, I'm been smarter the last 2 years. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.